Where Jesus walked.
Yes. You know they brought him outside the wall.
Yeah. I am now walking where Jesus walked, going to Calvary. Oh my.
Come forward, please, Nancy. You don't stand behind, please. Come forward, please.
We will go now to Calvary.
Yes. I hope it's open to you. Let's walk to the side.
That's the garden too.
The guy said I should be over there, right?
We are now going to the tomb of Jesus Christ.
That's what we're going. We're now going to the... First of all, they tell you where the well is. And let me go and sit in front so I can hear properly.
Please take a seat.
Sit down together.
Just wanted you to meet a friend of mine before we carry on. Suzanne?
Aangename kennis. Hoe gaan het? Nice to meet you. You've got a good guide here, right?
Yeah.
My Afrikaans is nie baie goed nie, but I sometimes like to show off. You see. And the very first group I ever had here from South Africa, I thought I would show off. And usually I say my name is Andrew, I'm a retired pastor from South Africa. So ek sê, my naam is Andrew, ek is 'n oorlede pastoor. Yeah. Okay, enjoy.
So, I mentioned to you that I'm a volunteer, as Andrew is. Most of the guides here are, but the staff that are here full-time are salaried. The only way that we are able to maintain the garden in the way that we do is through the donations of those that come. There will be an opportunity during your service to give a donation if you would like to the work of the garden too. And we invite that and welcome it. So, if where I have shown you really is the site of the crucifixion of Jesus, then according to what the Gospels tell us, alongside that place there was a garden with a tomb. Presumably the garden and the tomb belonged to the same person or to the same family. We are obviously in a garden now. This was a garden in the time of Jesus, and we know that for sure because just down over beyond this low wall over here to your left is this. This is a wine press. Now this was discovered by archaeologists in the 1920s. It is authentic, it is Roman style, it is from the time of Jesus. What they did here was that they trod on the grapes and they collected the grape juice in the basin at the bottom. So this tells us that this area was a working garden in the time of Jesus. So we have a site of execution, we have a garden, and in the garden we have a tomb. Now the tomb that you are going to see is like the tomb of Jesus in 7 different ways. You've got to remember all 7, otherwise we will not let you out. And we will test you. There's a man with a clipboard by the door, and he will expect you to recite all of them. So firstly, the tomb of Jesus was closed using a rolling stone. We know that. The women were concerned about whether or not they would be able to move it on resurrection morning. We have down here on the platform outside of the tomb a rolling stone. It is not the one from this tomb. It is genuine. It's from the 2nd century, but it is too small for a tomb this size. Secondly, the tomb of Jesus was chiseled out of solid rock. It wasn't a natural cave that was already there, but it was purpose built. So is this tomb, and you will be able to see it. Thirdly, the tomb of Jesus was the tomb of a wealthy man. Joseph of Arimathea was his name. This is the tomb of a wealthy man. Again, there is no doubt about that because it is so large. Fourthly, the tomb of Jesus was the tomb of a wealthy Jewish man. Now, one of the characteristics of this tomb that makes it clear to us that it is a Jewish tomb is that when you look at it at the front of it, on the upper right-hand side, you will see a window. The window is arch-shaped. It was not there so that people could look inside. It was a ventilation shaft that allowed the odors of a decomposing body to escape out into the air. That is a feature of Jewish tombs of that era. There are other tombs similar to that on the Mount of Olives, but Jesus was not buried on the Mount of Olives, so it wasn't there. Fifthly, the tomb of Jesus was big enough for 5 or maybe 6 women to go inside. On resurrection morning, Luke tells us that the women who came to the tomb were Mary Magdalene, she's the one we all remember, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and the other women. So that means at least 2 more. So 5 women. Luke tells us they went inside. Inside they saw 2 angels. So the tomb of Jesus was not a little hole in the wall that took 1 body, but it was a substantial chamber, and that's exactly what we've got here. In fact, it's 2 chambers. This is the floor plan of the tomb. You're going to go inside through this door, and this chamber is big enough to take 8 people comfortably, 10, even a dozen at a push. This is where the body would have been prepared for burial. It would have been washed, anointed with oils, wrapped in perfumed linen, and then laid to rest in the 2nd chamber here, which is right alongside it. And these were grave ledges or grave beds where the body was laid to decompose. So what the Jews did was that they buried twice. They buried the burial is really the wrong name for it, because they didn't put it underneath the ground or under the soil, and they didn't put it inside, they didn't put the body inside a coffin or a casket of any sort. The body was just laid on top of the ledge. So it was laid to rest. That probably is a better expression than being buried. And then 12 months later they would come, collect the bones together and put them into an ossuary, which is a kind of stone casket, but very small. In fact, I can show you one down on the grave platform in a few moments. So this is big enough for the women to go inside. Sixthly, when the women had been here and they had discovered that the body of Jesus had gone and that they'd spoken to the angels and they'd seen the grave clothes, they went to find the men. And John tells us of the way in which he went along with Peter to run to the tomb. And his description is a wonderful description of an eyewitness. He says that he arrived at the tomb before Peter. He ran faster than he did. He got to the entrance of the tomb, but he didn't venture inside. He says he crouched down, he looked in, and what he could see in his eye line without going in was the grave bed, the ledge where the body of Jesus had been. And he knew that it was there because the body wasn't there anymore, but the grave clothes were. The body of Jesus had gone. And he says that the napkin that had been over Jesus' face was folded up in a place by itself. It was all very tidy. And he could see that grave ledge from the doorway. You stand at this doorway, you look across there, and you can see that one from the door. You can't see this one and you can't see that one unless you go inside, but you can see that one. So again, that is another similarity with the tomb of Jesus. The last similarity is this, that if you go inside the tomb and you look for a dead body, you won't find one, because Jesus is risen. The message of the angels, he is not here. He is risen. So just as we thought for a few minutes about the why at Skull Hill, let us think for a moment about the why here. The Apostle Paul is fascinating in the way that he describes the resurrection of Jesus, because he puts it like this. He says, God raised Jesus from the dead. So the resurrection was the work of God the Father. Jesus did not raise himself. He was fully and completely dead. He wasn't lying there in the grave, checking his watch every half an hour and asking himself the question, is it time for me to get up yet? He was fully and completely dead. So why did God the Father raise him? In the baptism of Jesus, do you remember that Jesus was in the Jordan, the Holy Spirit came upon him like a dove, and that there was a voice from heaven that said, this is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. At the transfiguration of Jesus, when he was seen in all of his glory, and Peter, James and John were the witnesses, there was a voice from heaven that said, this is my beloved Son, listen to him. In the resurrection of Jesus from the grave, God the Father says to anybody who will listen, this is my beloved Son. Everything that he claimed, everything that he preached, everything that he taught, everything that he said is absolutely cast iron guaranteed true. And you can believe it. And the mark of authentication, the mark of guarantee, is that I have raised him from the dead. I did it so that you would know that what he said was true. But there's something else here. We were talking about a ransom being paid for us by Jesus. A debt that we owe being paid for us on our behalf by him. Has the ransom been paid in part, leaving us something that we've got to pay, or was it paid in full? It was paid in full. You know that, I know that, but how do we know it? What's the guarantee? The guarantee is that God raised him from the dead.
Amen.
To tell us, to let us know that everything that needed to be paid had been paid by Jesus on our behalf, and it was acceptable. And so again, the Apostle Paul says that Jesus was raised for our justification, to take hold of my hand, to take hold of the hand of God the Father, and to bring us together in himself. And the resurrection is the guarantee that everything has been paid in full. At the bottom of our invoice, it has got 3 letters, FOC. Do you know what that is? Free of charge. Exactly right. Free of charge to me, but at enormous cost to Christ. But if we stop there, that would be heartwarming. But we have missed something of far, far greater importance in the resurrection of Jesus. It isn't just that Jesus has been raised, but that he is still alive. Raising people from the dead was commonplace in the time of Jesus. He did it in the village of Nain. There was a woman who was bringing her son and he was going to be buried. And Jesus raised him. You've been to Capernaum? Jairus' daughter? She was dead. And Jesus says to her, little girl, arise. And Bethany, you've been to the Mount of Olives. Bethany is on the back side of the Mount of Olives. It's less than 3 miles from here. And Jesus instructed that the stone should be rolled away, and he stood in the entrance of the tomb and he spoke to a man who'd been dead for 4 days, and he said, Lazarus, come out. But the tragedy for these 3 people was that they had to die a second time. That was the tragedy for them. But not for Jesus.
Amen.
He was raised, and he's still alive, and he's still available. He has never died since. And he desires, doesn't he, to live within the lives and the hearts of his people. I was 17 when I invited Jesus to come and live inside my life. And I've had what the Methodists have used to describe as a felt Christ. A Christ to be known, to be experienced, and to be lived with in his company. And that's the heart of the Christian message. Again, one sentence from the Apostle Paul to finish with, and you complete the sentence for me. Christ in you, the hope of glory. Yeah, wow. Wow, what a thing. Christ in you, the hope of glory. And that is real Christianity. If it isn't yours, it must become yours, even today in this place. Yeah. So, a chance to go and have a look at the tomb. This other group have gone ahead of us. We'll walk past the wine press. When we get down to the tomb, please look where you put your feet before you take your photographs, because it is very uneven. We don't want you to fall. When we go to the tomb, I'll stay there and supervise for as long as I can, 6 at a time inside. You're welcome to take as many photographs inside as you want, but can I ask you not to take poses of one another? I know that it only takes a minute, but it'll be 20 minutes to take poses of one another. So of the tomb, by all means, let's go and have a look. This is the wine press.
Amazing. Isn't that beautiful?
So we'll go this way then to the tomb.
Wait for you. Oh, we need to take a picture of you.
Later.
Oh, I just take the phone when you go and I take a picture of you inside.
Inside.
So this is where he was laid here. He's not here. He is risen. Amen. Glory. Glory, glory, glory. Go stand there, my name.